Testing, 1, 2, 3. Welcome back, everyone. Happy New Year. I hope you guys had a wonderful, safe, good time, blessed time with your families. So thanks all for being here today. Yeah, just drop me a 1 in the chat, as always, to let me know that my audio is coming through correctly. You know, I'm great at messing up my audio. Right, so let me see. We have, let me just change that. So we have Roseanne Rossi working in 20 minutes. Yeah, that's one of those things, but yeah, you can always catch up later, but good to have you for a few minutes. XYZ, welcome. Conociendo el Islam, welcome. Horse, of course. Horse, when are you going to reach out to me? We'll set up a talk. Would be great to have that chat with you one day. Lomaine, welcome. I sent you back an email. Villainous, good to see you. Of course, we've got Sandro Correo, the Lloydites, was it the Luddites? And we've got Dan Simpson, welcome. CMB, welcome. Great chatting with you the other day. Okay, you guys will hear me, so that's great. Okay, let me dive into this. Oh, by the way, question. 1, if you like this large view, or 2, if this is better. I'm just curious. I'm just trying to see how I can just improve things slightly, but this is a more zoomed in view. This is a more zoomed out view. Which is preferred, especially when I switch over like this? Do you prefer it like the zoom out or the zoom in? This is zoomed in. This is zoomed out. Which one just looks generally better? So 1 for the wide view, 2 for the zoomed in view. Right, so Eric Montes, welcome. Teresa R, welcome. Yeah, Enki, welcome. Cassandra Ball, good to see you. So, ideas have consequences. And today we're going to be talking about, well, we're going to be talking about totalism, which is a cousin of totalitarianism, but they overlap. Horse says, I am too boring for you, Lloyd, our international man of mystery. Michael Lawler, welcome. I don't think so, Horse. I'm sure you come across as anything but boring. So 1, that's the zoom. Okay, the zoomed out view. That's not this one, but this one. Dan Simpson. Okay, we'll count this stuff later. Okay, guys, so by the way, I'm also working on a handful of other presentations. I've got 3 right now that are almost ready to go. In the next 2 weeks, I'll have them. They should be finished this week, though. We're going to be talking about realism versus nominalism. This is very important. It is critical for understanding the whole transgender issue. And I'm a horse, I'm a dog, I'm a jet fighter, I'm an attack helicopter. We need to understand these are 2 diametrically opposed philosophical viewpoints of how the world works. This goes back to the pagan days. It had a resurgence during the medieval era and during the Renaissance especially. We need to talk about that so you can understand you're dealing with 2 completely separate, conflicting philosophical views of the world. And the one is derived from materialism, and then this gives context immediately to this entire trans phenomenon, okay? Let's call it trans-paganism, right? So this is something, so currently, let me just get, oops. Let me get that up. Right, so this one is going to be about 30 slides, I think, when I'm done. Of course, it is going to feature a man called Martin Luther, although it's not primarily focused on him, but I will cap it off with Martin Luther. He's got something to do with that. So these slides are done. These slides here, these are not done. These still need to be edited and cleaned up. But I'm going to use the simple example of, can a pear be a pineapple? You know, so that's going to be really, really simple. These are the same ideas that also occur within Marxism. And we need to discuss this, okay? So that's something that's coming up. Then I have another one that I'm working on that's nearly done, which is this one called The Reformation, Moral Preening and the First Woke Revolt. We're going to have to look at how the okay. Are we... Okay, do we have connection? Just let me know that... Okay, let's hope it repairs itself. Okay, OBS is reconnected. I just made a change. Yeah. Okay, let's have a look here. I'm just having a look at the YouTube studio. Yeah, YouTube is reporting a problem. My apologies. Let's hope we can fix that. Okay, so my signal's definitely not in the green, but some people are reporting it's better now. Okay, guys. We have connection. Good. Okay. Sorry about that, guys. It's raining here, and in Warsaw, When it rains, we have these problems. Your Highness, baie welkom, goed om jou te sien. Eric Montes, welcome. Okay, so yeah, we're going to be talking about this. So that's coming up. And yeah, so we need to talk about a guy. Well, I just closed. No, I did not. Here it is. Okay, first of all, we need to meet a guy called Antonio Elorda. We have liftoff. Awesome. Hello, Tigger. Welcome. Yeah, let's hope it picks up. It should improve. Right. This is an author. Now, I got his paper maybe 4 or 5 years ago. I was given this before issue year 2010. Oh my gosh. Okay. So I was issued a copy of this paper. It was given to me, and it is a really good paper. So we will be coming back to it in the near future. So I'm taking a piece out of this paper, 1 or 2 pages only, and then I'm utilizing another source to go through this. But I will make what sources I can available. This was given to me. This one's behind a paywall. I'm not sure if I have permission to give this one to you. So this is about totalitarianism and totalism by Antonio Elorda, very, very well-known scholar. The distinction between totalitarianism and totalism does not exclude a high degree of convergence. So they're not identical. Great stuff, looking good. But they are very similar. Okay? So that's the original paper that I'm going to be using. He has quite a presence. He's written a number of books. He teaches in Madrid. Okay, so he's got a number of books published. And this is Antonio Elorda, historian and professor of political science and economics at Madrid's Complutense University. He's a specialist in the ideologies of the 20th century, social movements, and nationalisms. All right, now that's out the way. Let's jump into this. So we're going to be tying totalitarianism and woke together. We're going to look at the ideology behind it, which is a cult ideology, and then we're also going to look at how this originates out of Gnosticism, specifically Manichaeism, which also had an influence in the 10th, 11th, 12th century, as well as on both Calvin and Luther, that I will get to in the future, but I've mentioned this before. Right, let's talk about deep sacred alchemy and gender science, because it's not science, is it? This is Manly P. Hall, who writes a lot of gunk, but okay. So I've read some of his stuff. It's yeah, whatever. Okay, so this is Manly P. Hall's Secret Teaching of All Ages, the alchemic sorcerer creating his divine androgyne. So this is a what's called a bi-generation. Now, here you've got apparently what this painting is sometimes called hermaphrodite with eagle, or hermaphrodite with eagle. Some will say that this is Satan. You can see the claws are around their bodies. Satan's got his claws on them. And these look like dead birds down here. Okay? So that's fantastic. But now have a look at this. What do you guys think of Doctor Who? Do we see any... Am I imagining an overlap? Am I imagining a similarity? Your thoughts in the comment. If I'm imagining it, just say 3. And if this looks legit, say 1. That this seems to be someone is trying to send us a message here. That we're looking at a deep sacred alchemy, a Gnostic alchemy, gender science, magic science, the science of the gnosis. What are your thoughts? 1, if you agree with me. 2, if I'm just stretching here. Okay. Right. Now, in ancient Egypt, there was a saying, and this is related to this. The gods are people who have made duality one. So you become a god if you can blend the duality, if you can blend the opposites. In other words, if you can make the contradictories connect. Yes, Doctor Who did get hijacked by woke. So you guys agree with me that we see something similar here. We're seeing a connection here, that this symbolism, this means something. Humans, on the other hand, are child gods who live duality in order to know oneness. In other words, we live in a dualized world, but we need to try to find a way to overcome the contradictions, which of course goes against logic, goes against reason, goes against the logos. Okay, we'll come back to that. Now let's have a look at the DSM-5 and the term gender dysphoria. Yes, Tigger, they love the hidden messages. So we're looking at DSM-5, right? Section 302-85, F64.9, whatever that means. That's the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, right? And let's have a look from the American Psychiatric Association. Gender dysphoria, formerly gender identity disorder in DSM-4 and earlier, right? Welcome, Sheikh Biardi. Emily Doggy, welcome. Okay, so now the official definition in DSM-5 for gender dysphoria is in both adults and teenagers, a noticeable incongruence between the gender that the patient believes they are and what society perceives them to be. So what they think they are and what society accepts them to be are two different things. Of course, this is a medical diagnosis. This is a mental disorder. Understand, it's considered a psychological disorder. The criteria for diagnosing gender dysphoria in adolescents and adults include a strong and persistent cross-gender identification, a strong desire to get rid of one's primary and secondary sex characteristics, and a strong desire to have the primary and secondary sex characteristics of the other gender. Of course, if you like what I do, please hit the like button. If you don't like it, hit the like button 3 times. And do share, do tell people about this if you find it useful. Also, by the way, in today's gender diverse world, I mean, things are interesting, things are great. For instance, these days you can identify as a woman even while looking like an unshaven man. Like, there's some positives. There are some positives. I must say there's some positives about being able to be a woman or a man and not having your gender assumed by people. For instance, today I was walking in the mall. 4 guys stopped me and they thought I was Beyonce. So, winning. All right. So now, you want to get rid of your primary and secondary sex characteristics, and you have a strong desire to have the primary and secondary sex characteristics of the other gender. Now, this is interesting, because then the American Psychiatric Association is implying with this statement that there are only 2 genders. It doesn't say the other genders, it says the other gender, implying 2. So, as far as science is concerned, there's only 2 genders. All right? Now, gender dysphoria is classified as a mental disorder in the DSM-5. Now, notice the reason that it is classified as a mental disorder. CMB, wow, thank you very much. I'm so grateful. Thank you. I was wondering if you can please direct me to Islamic records and how jizya was applied. I have been discussing. Okay, on my channel, I have a talk with Chris from Speaker's Corner on jihad and jizya. Please have a look. On dhimmis and jizya, please have a look. It's a very, very detailed sharok. Okay, now, the reason that gender dysphoria, that trans, is defined as gender, leave your bra at home and it won't happen. When I wasn't, I was dressed like a guy and they thought I was Beyonce. I mean, it's like, it was very charming. Made me feel good, made me feel good. So, notice it is classified as a mental disorder, right? So a man thinking they're a woman or a woman thinking they're a man, pretending to be, is classified as a mental disorder in order to facilitate access to medical and psychological treatment for those who need it. So it is classified as a mental disorder, in other words, to make medical treatment available. Now, here's the thing. If it was not classified as a mental disorder, you couldn't require medical treatment for it. You couldn't have a whole medical industry growing out of it. You couldn't have 50,000 top and bottom surgeries in America last year. You wouldn't have a multi-billion-dollar growing industry able to make billions on cutting off kids' willies and telling them they're girls now, or cutting off women's boobies and telling them they're men now. Do you understand? It's defined as a mental disorder specifically to enable this kind of profiteering by the medical industry. Bear that in mind. Now, if it was removed from the DSM-5, medical treatment would be unavailable. I was mistaken for Whoopi Goldberg. You had better luck, Lloyd. Sorry about that, man. It's just that I got the looks, you know what I'm saying? So, now, trans is a mental disorder, okay? This is where you're going to find trans. Now, people will try and tell you, but no, that's not trans. Yes, that's trans. That's how it's defined. That's where it comes from. I'm not going to get into that long song and dance right now. Ernesto says he doesn't believe me that I was identified as being Beyonce. I don't know, guys. I am hurt, Ernesto. I'm so hurt. So, human guinea pigs. Yes, Just Janice. So, okay, right. It's an emotional disorder, correct. So now, let's continue. Men are not women. I think we know that. So now we're going to talk about a man called Robert Lifton. a famous American psychiatrist and author who's made great contributions to the field of psychology and the psychological causes and effects of war, political violence, and thought reform. So when it's the cheekbones, it's my cheekbones. Okay, yeah, probably. But I used to think I had a face for radio, but now if I'm going to get mistaken for Beyonce, maybe that'll boost my confidence a bit, But some men can get pregnant. No, they can't. Okay, so when they say thought reform, they mean mind control. In other words, brainwashing. Right? So thought reform and the psychology of totalism, a study of brainwashing in China by Robert J. Lifton. Right, let's continue. So he lectures in psychiatry at Harvard. Of course, we know Harvard's been taking a knock lately, but he's been at Yale. This guy's a legit scholar. He's very, very good. His groundbreaking work is on the psychology of totalism. So this overlaps with totalitarianism. All right, and in his book, right, he outlines 8 psychological themes that are common to all manifestations of the cult ideology of totalism. And this is where we get into woke. Now, let's add some perspective. In the book, it starts with part 1, the problem. How intoxicating to feel like God the Father and to hand out definitive testimonials of bad character and habits. That's Albert Camus. Now, this is part of it. Understand how judgmental. Remember, there was a time, I remember growing up, when people was, you're a Christian, you should not judge. You shouldn't judge. Don't judge others. The Bible does not teach us not to judge, right? It teaches us to have discernment, right? We're not to make hypocritical judgments, but we are meant to use our judgment. But here you've got, you're a racist, you're a bigot, you're a phobe this, you're a phobie that, you're a phobe the other. Understand, so because they have the correct ideology, they can judge everyone else. And under these conditions, they are making themselves to be God. Okay? Now they have Lao Tzu. Only simple and quiet words will ripen of themselves, for a whirlwind does not last for the whole morning, nor does a thunder shower last the whole day. Who is their author? The heaven and earth. Yet even they cannot make such violent things last. How much more true must this be of the rash endeavors of man? Now, there's a very strong Christian sentiment in there, and I want to go through this for a moment and bring up some Christian wisdom, shall we say, to complement what we have here from the Tao Te Ching of Lao Tzu. Ecclesiastes 9:11, I returned and saw under the sun that the race is not to the swift, nor the battle to the strong, neither yet bread to the wise, nor yet riches to men of understanding, nor yet favor to men of skill, but time and chance happen to all. Ecclesiastes 9:17, the words of the wise heard in quiet are better than the shouting of a ruler among fools. So I'm saying some of these because I want you to understand you're facing a very powerful enemy. They've got money, they've got control of politics, control of media, control of the law, but they too will pass. Woke is a very punitive, puritanical cult, no forgiveness. Exactly, villainous, well said, very well spotted, very well said. Proverbs 19:2, desire without knowledge is not good, and whoever makes haste with his feet misses his way. The Lloyd say. Human endeavors and powers are fleeting and temporal. Our efforts and our works, no matter how forceful and ambitious, cannot and will not override God's will, nor outlast God's authority. In Ecclesiastes 1:2, we read that all is vanity apart from God. So Ecclesiastes 12:13-14 says, let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. For God shall bring every work into judgment, with every secret thing, whether it be good or whether it be evil. So I just felt these were relevant to add to this, but let's continue. Right. There are 8 things common to cult ideology. Now, Robert Lifton mentions these 8 things. 1, control of the media. 2, what he calls mystic manipulation. 3, purity, obsession. And Villainous was right when he said puritanical. 4, cult confession. 5, the worship of sacred science. 6, the control of language use and language function. So manipulation of language. Welcome, Andrew. Good to see you. 7, doctrine above people. And 8, our existence is at stake. Oh my God, the seas are going to rise and kill us. It's a genocide of, you pick the group, dispensation of existence. So it's called dispensation of existence, but basically our existence, our survival is at stake. All of these are in woke ideology, and all of these are present in totalitarian and totalist ideologies. And I'll be talking more about this as we go in the future. Now, regarding point 8, this means that the very existence or survival of something is in danger or at risk. So to create a sense of urgency and to create a sense of investment, they have to create this sense of doom, right? Of course, this causes psychological harm, causes damage, causes stress. Yeah, James Lindsay has some useful vids on the woke cult Gnosticism. Yep, I've watched a lot of his stuff. It's good. So in the context of Robert Lifton's 8 psychological themes of totalism, your individual existence or sense of self is threatened if you do not conform to the group ideology, to the group demands, because the group is trying to help you, and therefore you need to submit your will to that of the group. It's a genocide because someone did not use my pronouns. Exactly, definitely not a cult. ORATX is right there. This was in Nazism, Stalinism, Maoism, and yes, exactly, Andrew, you are so correct. So this theme is often used as a form of control. It creates fear in people and a need to comply to preserve your own existence. You Kafir Islamo-transphobe, you. Oh my God, you're going to be genocided by those Kafir Islamo-transphobes. Understand? We're going to see a lot more of this. We're going to talk about this. I'm going to only do about 20, maybe 24 pages. This is 40 pages long. So I'll do 20 to 24, 25 slides today, and I'll do the rest another day. Okay? Now, it's not genocide. It's manslaughter. Okay? So understand, it's not a genocide. It's manslaughter. Rightio. So outsiders who do not follow the ideology are alienated and excluded from the group or society that embraces the totalist ideology. Yes, you don't want to eat the bugs. You're going to destroy the world because farming is destroying the planet. We got to kill all the cows. You got to eat the bugs or you're going to contribute to the death of the world. You bugophobe, you, or whatever the heck. Okay, do you understand? So diets are controlled in cults. Yes, we will find that in the Gnostics. They control the diets as well. So leaders of these ideologies are purposefully antichrist. Now, the reason I'm doing this is because I want to show you how these are explicitly anti-Christian, how they explicitly go against God's moral law, against rationality, against reason, against the logos. You need to understand all of these are anti-Christian movements. They come out of Gnosticism, which is explicitly anti-Christian. So, yeah. Let's continue. Outsiders will feel pressured to conform or risk being ostracized, even if you don't belong to the cult, which can lead to psychological distress and a compromised sense of self. You are producing so much CO2, stop it while I step in on my private jet. Exactly, one private jet trip, right, to Europe and back by someone who's in the WEF or something like that will produce, 8 tons on 1 per hour of CO2 or something, whatever the number is. And it'll make basically as much CO2 in a couple of round trips as 10,000 households would in their whole lifetime, right? So that's insane. Now, they will constantly tell you they are committing a genocide of gays, transgenders, blacks, Palestinians. Does this sound familiar? Of course it does. This is very common today. This is common to totalitarian regimes, to totalist regimes. It is also common to these woke Gnostics. So the concept of existence and survival is a fundamental aspect of totalism. These themes have deep psychological impact when used as a form of control over others. They create mental illness. They create stress. I'm not going strongly into the definitions of totalism versus totalitarianism. That's kind of arbitrary right now. It's neither here nor there. You called me sir. It's ma'am, not sir. Exactly. Exactly. So this concept of dispensation of existence makes a radical distinction between the community and those outside of it. For instance, you're not in the trans community, therefore you're by default a threat to them. You are outside of that community, you don't like them, and therefore you are going to genocide them. Right. So this idea delineates between true believers who have a right to exist. You see, the true believers, those who are in the Green Party, those who believe that the polar bears are going to die, right? Those who believe in all this stuff, they have a right to exist because they are the righteous ones. And there are those with a different vision of the world who do not. Are you a Christian? Well, then that's you. Do you not believe in the apocalypse? Well, that's you, right? Do you understand? These ideologies have a genuine sense that you don't have a right to exist. You cis, het, normative, white male, you don't, right? Understand? They are very, very serious about this. This whole woke thing is totalitarian. Make no mistake. Andrew says the trans community in New Zealand assaulted and tried to murder a women's rights activist last year. Yeah. The Monty Python quotes ran through my head during all your talks. Cool. So Konetiendo al-Islam says, what, the genocide of blacks? Where they're talking about the Rwanda's genocide. Exactly. I mean, if you look at these statistics in the US, there's no genocide of blacks. None whatsoever. But of course, they don't care about genocide of blacks in Rwanda or, slaughters that are happening in Yemen or Sudan. They don't care. Right, so now you've been judged impure. Now, at its core, right, according to Lifton, the doctrine is Manichaean. In other words, it is Gnostic. It is anti-Christian. So it's an anti-Christian Gnostic ideology. And it's a fundamental dualistic worldview, an opposition between the pure and the impure. Pedro says it's definitely totalitarian. I've seen videos of them shutting down a swimmer who spoke out against transgenderism. Exactly. Welcome, Corin. Peridot. Welcome. So, totalism's approach categorizes people, ideas, and actions into polarized categories. You are either purely aligned with the ideology, or you are inherently impure and opposed to it. For instance, when I was on Facebook, and I haven't been on Facebook in more than a year now, I was constantly, because I'm not woke, because I'm not left-leaning liberal, because I'm actually conservative, I was constantly what people were using the word, which word, the N-word. I was constantly having the N-word thrown at me. I was called an Uncle Tom. I was called whatever slur that was the slur of the day was constantly being thrown at me because I wasn't correctly black. You see, I wasn't doing black correctly. So I was supposed to do black differently. I was supposed to hate white people. I was supposed to this. I was supposed to that. I was supposed to blah, blah. No, I'm sorry. No. So understand, they will turn around and they will slur you and slander you and insult you and smear you. They will have zero respect for you being black. And white people will be, leftist white people will be incredibly nasty because you're not doing it right the way that they expect you to. Understand? So yeah. So by implication, existence is reserved for the pure, right? There is only one path for true existence, only one valid way of being, and that's woke. I'm the wrong black. Exactly. Okay, so this happens constantly. This is not a surprise. Now, individuals who do not align with the established beliefs are considered to not exist, and in extreme cases, they should not be allowed to exist. See, because as you know, whiteness is violence, right? Whiteness is evil. Whiteness has dirtied the world, sullied the world. Whiteness has brought incredible harm to black bodies. You know what I'm saying, right? So understand these ideas are directly and explicitly totalitarian, and they are directly and explicitly part of the woke movement, which is itself thus totalitarian, right? So now you all do know that yeah, I think you'd understand. I don't want to go explicitly into examples on this, but I think you get it, right? Now, one's existence is subject to radical subjugation, whether believer or not. So if you're a believer, you have to believe all of this crazy nonsense. If you're not a believer, they're going to use the law to compel you. That's why in the UK, people are being visited for tweets that are, shall we say, slightly critical of immigrants, right? You have people that are being sued for saying the wrong thing to transgenders. People who won't bake a cake for gay people are losing their business, losing their livelihoods. Do you understand this whole thought police thing? This is happening everywhere. So they will enforce radical subjugation on you. That's the Sharia. Applies to you whether you're a believer or not. Do understand they are deadly serious. Sheikh Biardi, wow, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yeah, I need to do some more work on Islam. I just finished the section on Hamas and, of course, Palestine. And I've got to do stuff now on, I'm busy working on ideas for the Gnostic aspect, no, the Hermeticism in Islam. I want to be going into that. I've already got the books. I've got the research. So I've got the research materials and I need to start going through them and start collecting notes. The left call others Nazis. Well, yeah, whilst Jew bashing, exactly. They can't even see the contradiction. Exactly. They are completely lost. I mean, they don't see the truth anymore. Yeah. So the movie was about you're not riding a horse, you're okay, so let me see. Woman got arrested for privately praying. Exactly. Do you understand? That is radical subjugation. That's the Sharia. The woke Sharia is being imposed. So Pedro says, in 2020, I realized the demonic direction the BLM and woke movement were trying to move me to. I swear what happened just sped up the process. Yeah, look, I think it's going to collapse under its own weight. But thank you guys for the support donations. Thank you very much. Oh, by the way, if you look in the attached link, that's the pinned comment. This particular presentation is available. It's on my coffee shop. It's $5 right now. So please, if you'd like it, if you want to use this material, it's available for $5 in the pinned link. Okay, moving on. So individuals, concepts, ideas, actions are judged and categorized based on a very strict, very uncompromising, unforgiving binary of purity and impurity, alignment and opposition, while still using the words of inclusion. Understand, but you know, if you're Christian, if you're conservative, white male, you're not included. You do know this. Dr. Jonathan Gemmell, thank you very much. Thank you. Appreciate your comments. So now, Sheikh says the far left and the far right are just two wings of the same bird. Both are intolerant, politically correct, racist, and bigots. You know, yes and no. Okay, I would want to sit and think through that myself more carefully, for the simple reason that anything that is a very one of these convenient slogans needs to be questioned, because a slogan is often, shall we say, an easy slippery slope to send you down, so that it's called a thought inhibiting meme. It's there's a name for it, where it stops you from thinking. So you immediately have this phrase, the slogan, and you stop thinking critically. It's like a thought inhibiting, thought arresting meme. So you want to ask yourself, has this been crafted to get me to stop looking further, to get me to not look to the left or to the right or to the rear or to the front? Is it designed to arrest my attention and to stop me from thinking, but to capture me emotionally? And then, so you need to think about that. You need to be very careful about that. Andrew says, an example of New Zealand, a white criminal was named and shamed, a black criminal assaulted a judge, hidden and not named. Yes, we know this. Men were caught stealing. Men beat up a woman. It's like, if there's a white guy that have said, James Smith, this nasty, bigoted white man did X. But if it's a bunch of black guys, it's like, youths were found to have assaulted a 5-year-old French boy, and they beat him up, knocked out half of his teeth, and cracked his skull. The youths are currently being questioned, and without bail, they're free to go. And, we can't find half of them anymore. Yeah, because you know they're black. It's simple. You know exactly how this works. So, now, understand control of media. Totalist groups, including cults and totalitarian regimes, exert control over their members by manipulating information and the communication that reaches them. You've all seen this in leftist media. So this allows them to create a narrative that emphasizes constant threats to their existence. They're going to genocide you, justifying the extreme measures to maintain power and influence. You saw this with the supreme deity Donald Trump. Okay, you saw how he's the new Hitler. He's going to genocide the world. He's going to cause World War III. He's going to cause the earth to melt down. He's going to turn the world orange. You've seen all of this. Okay. So yeah, you've seen this, the exaggeration, incredible ratcheting up of the rhetoric, right? So now, by controlling the flow of information, these groups, now for instance, the media, if you look at the donations the media makes to political groups, they're like 99% of the media donates to leftist Democrat causes, right? The end of democracy, yeah, exactly, the end of democracy, exactly, right? If you look at the universities, how many right-leaning tenured professors are there? Like 3 in the whole world, right, at this point. Understand, they control these things. So they want to shape the beliefs and perceptions of their followers, so they control the media very tightly. and thus they ensure compliance and submission. Right? Totalitarian regimes such as Nazi Germany under Adolf Hitler, the Soviet Union under Stalin, and cults like the People's Temple by Jim Jones are notable examples where control over information and communication exerted incredible influence and sustained their power. In Nazi Germany, state-controlled media and propagandist literature portrayed a narrative that emphasized the constant threat from internal and external enemies, the British, the you-know-which group, that you-know-which group. Oh, by the way, someone mentioned, I mentioned I put up a community post discussing the overlap between woke, between the Pharisees and Martin Luther and the Reformation, and someone said it's always them. I banned him. Okay? Let me be honest. You say that, I'm simply going to ban your ass. I'm not even going to have a discussion with you because I don't think there's a point. You're not acting in good faith. You're not thinking. You're not listening. I didn't say the Jews are doing it. What I'm saying is that the same methodologies in play, the same thinking, the same practices. So I did not say that Martin Luther's a Jew and doing Jewish things. I didn't say that. I'm saying that if someone does something, it doesn't mean he's a Jew doing it. It just means that this is the same thing that was criticized there. It was being done there. It's the same thing. And again, I didn't say all Jews. So understand that particular group with that particular set of ideas, those particular people, not all of them, just that group. So unfortunately, you've seen hatred of Jews is common. It is rife. Okay? So especially among Christians, you see this all the time. So yeah, I have no time or patience for that. Now, so you have to identify an enemy, right? And you've got to say that enemy is going to harm you. That enemy is going to kill you. That enemy is going to do something secret. It's going to eat your kids. It's going to sneak under your bed and stab you in the back while you're sleeping. Understand they will constantly do things like this. However, you, on the right of the political spectrum, you cannot turn around and say, but hold on, those blacks are forming gangs and murdering people. Those foreigners are coming here and raping white women. Okay, even if you can prove that 85% of the rapes, let's say in Sweden, Norway, Denmark, are caused by, let's say, Asians. Let's just use that word. Are caused by Asians. You can't say that. You lose your job. You'll get visited by the police. You'll end up in jail. You'll go to court and you'll be bankrupted because you are not allowed to identify a connection. Okay, it looks like I'm back. OBS seems to have a connection. It says connection. Looks like I went offline for about 10 seconds, guys. My apologies there. William Tyndale was tied to a stake, strangled with a rope, and torched outside a castle near Brussels because he gave peasants the Bible. Tommy, that's a wonderful story. You should write another one, but this time start with once upon a time, there was a prince. And the prince had a unicorn that was pink. Okay, because yeah. The whole story about Tyndale, I've covered Tyndale at length in the past. I haven't explicitly done a story on Tyndale. But the story on Tyndale is propaganda. There's a lot of propaganda around that story. Tyndale, yeah. So there are a few issues there. So yeah, that particular story is nothing that I would take seriously because anyway. But we'll discuss Tyndale at another time. I didn't do Tyndale. I did What's His Face, or the guy before Tyndale or after Tyndale. So yeah, the Bible didn't exist before that. Now, Tommy, I can fortunately tell you that's bullshit. Okay? You are utterly, totally just talking absolute bullshit on that score. Okay? There were Bibles before Tyndale. Tyndale didn't do you any favors in that regard. And Tyndale wrote what's called excuse my French, a bullshit Bible. So, yeah, his Bible deserved to be burned. Okay, moving on. Okay, moving on. Right, now, transmedia manipulation. Okay? Media manipulation. Right. Now, biological sex is determined by chromosomes, hormones, and reproductive organs, which are fixed and cannot be changed, making it impossible for a man to become a woman. So what do you have to do? You have to frame the narrative. And the trans community will very often frame the discussion around the issue of gender identity in terms of human rights, equality, and social justice. Right? Not justice, social justice. Notice they have to redefine. Okay, so you know what, Tommy? Bye-bye. Say goodbye to the camera. Have a nice day. Okay, moving on. Now, Notice they can't simply use justice as we already know it, as we already understand it, as it has been commonly understood in the West for hundreds of years. They've got to say social justice to redefine it. You have to redefine the term through a different lens, and then you can change it. So when you say, well, men can't be women, because they say, well, but if you consider gender ideal, blah, 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 then they can redefine these things. So do not allow them to do this. Okay, now, this framing ignores scientific evidence, of course. It has to quite bluntly ignore logic, which is the law of identity, and it has to ignore science, by basic biological science, right? Basic genetics. Only then can it make its case, by utterly ignoring this. Now, are we beholden? Are we required to? Are we obligated to believe something that is provably illogical? No. Are we obligated to believe something that is provably unscientific? No. Right? At least you'd think so. But of course, once they can get rid of science, get rid of logic, then of course they will force you through the law, right, at risk of losing your job and your reputation, to accept that men can be women and men can have babies, right? But of course they have to redefine all of these terms. Of course, it has no care about fairness in sports and so on, correct? Now, so they try to get us to ignore the science and the logic. They reframe it as understanding and acceptance. They want you to be tolerant, understand, which means deny reality. These terms, the terms they use, don't mean what you think they mean. And they want to drive us to rewarding and embracing irrationality, right? Now, they amplify voices. So the trans community uses social media and other platforms to amplify the voices of its members. That's why the shadow banning for those on the right, that's been going on for years, that we've seen at places like Twitter, right? So they share their stories and experiences to raise awareness and garner support. And they say, well, we just want to get the correct information out there, right? And these voices are amplified by the media. So it's a means to control the narrative, but it masquerades as an attempt to humanize the issue and to foster empathy. Be sympathetic. You need to be sympathetic. Where's your sympathy? Where's your empathy? Where's your compassion? But they don't talk about where's your fucking logic, right? Where's your rigorous science? This is not even scientific, and it's utterly irrational. So you want me to be empathetic of nonsense? No. Yes, Dan, they invent new science and then impose it on us by force. The Ministry of Misinformation, correct. So they engage with the media. The trans community, Dylan Mulvaney, anyone, actively engages with the media, providing information and resources to journalists and media outlets to shape the coverage. Right? Now, this is obviously an attempt to control the flow of information, but is framed as a way to ensure that accurate and up-to-date information is being disseminated. Understand? Listen for these phrases and terms, then you'll know that that's propaganda. Yeah, in the 21st century, we're having conversations about what is a woman. Now, the weird thing is, how can you transition to a woman if you don't know what a woman is? If you cannot define what a woman is? If women don't exist and men are women, how can you transition to being a woman? Something that doesn't exist. It's like, huh? Yeah, the women's movement supported the trans agenda while shooting themselves in the foot. Yeah. Okay, now let's talk about mystical manipulation. So totalist groups often employ a sense of mysticism or supernatural elements to emphasize their unique understanding of reality or mission, Gnosticism. This instills a sense of importance among the followers. We've got secret knowledge. So here we've got this news report. North Carolina transgender inmate suing prison over right to practice witchcraft. So of course, as you know, transgenderism is science. It's got nothing to do with things like paganism or witchcraft, does it? Except maybe it does. Okay? I mean, so we can actually go have a look at that. It's a genuine article. Transgender inmate suing over the right to this really ugly man here. That's not an ugly woman. That's an ugly man. Wants to practice witchcraft, suing the prison to practice witchcraft. So this manipulation of beliefs and perception helps to maintain the group's existence, right? Because it creates a heightened sense of purpose. They've got a religious purpose. Understand, it is religious. It is deeply spiritual for them. It is not scientific. It is spiritual. And of course, witchcraft is opposed to Christianity. Make the connection. Again, it is anti-Christian. It might not explicitly say so. It might not explicitly want to get into a fight with the religious right and with the church, but ultimately that's what it's doing. That's the angle that they're coming from, right? So you've got this heightened sense of purpose and dedication among the members, solidifying the group's control and influence. Tom says leftism is a satanic movement. Yes, it is. Okay, let's continue. Oops. So, North Carolina transgender inmate sues prison over right to practice witchcraft. Okay, this is 2018, so this goes way back already. Okay, yes, this is all religious. This is all religious. STRC, correct. All right, so now notice, here they are trying to game the system to gain special privileges. See, they are simply moving that ball down that corridor, getting extra privileges. Now you suddenly have witchcraft as a religion, and that's permitted. So you have Christianity, and so understand it's also a moral war. They are introducing things that are going to fragment, going to fracture. They're introducing the poison that's going to kill the system, that's going to kill the body, right? Everything is religious war. Understand that when you look at ideological warfare, which is what I'm going to be getting to over the next few months as I have time, because I've got so much that I'm going to be covering, any ideological war, any propaganda war is at root always a moral war. It is moral warfare. All right. So this individual followed a Wiccan diet. A Wiccan diet. They also wanted a Wiccan diet. So now the whole prison system has to adapt to accommodate one person. Remember, if they get this right, then it sets legal precedent. And then the entire United States has to now conform, because everyone's going to sue the heck out of the government, the prison system in this case, because we want our special diet. Right? So they want a Wiccan diet. Right? They asked the prison to provide the proper clothes and religious items. I don't want to pay for it. You pay for it. I want to be a witch. You buy me the stuff. Okay, so they're a gold-digging witch. Do you understand? And your tax dollars are paying for this. So they needed the proper clothes and religious items needed to conduct the services. So Dwayne L. Fox is serving 16 years in prison for second-degree sexual offense. Now, fortunately, transgender people don't do sexual offenses. Luckily, they're not criminals or anything of that nature. Philip Wafula, normal humans cannot come up with these ideological schemes yet. There's something satanic about it, for sure. Right, so yeah. Now, I also need to mention the 8 categories that we're talking about. These 8 categories I mentioned, they can overlap. So I'm going to cycle through all of them as I work through the presentation, not necessarily in strict order. Okay, some things will fit into more than one category. And so I won't necessarily be going through them in a strict order. I'm going to go from 1 to 8, but as I go through the 1 to 8, I'm also going to be referring back to other categories or jumping ahead to categories, just so you know. It's not like a clean, it's a little mixed within the categories. So now they've also got to rehabilitate the image of evil. They've got to take evil and make it look good, make it acceptable. They've got to go against the established morality, the whole moral doctrine that we've grown up with in the West, right? So, Vice, how witchcraft is empowering queer and trans young people. Oh, because Christianity won't allow it. At least most Christians aren't. There are some crazy ones, but like the Wesleyan Church or the Methodist Church recently has now come out with this whole, man, there was something crazy about the Methodist Church. Yeah. So, yeah, these things are happening. So witchcraft is empowering queer and trans people. And there's no one way to be a witch, says May Rood, who left the Catholic Church after coming out as trans. It's a really freeing identity. There's no one way. In other words, I can't identify the stuff. I'm making it up. There is no strict definition. We're just making it up as we go. Whatever you're doing, we're going to do the exact opposite to disrupt it. It's as simple as that. We are contrarians. It's as simple as that. Privilege hunting is about power. Exactly. Subjugation. Radical subjugation. That's exactly what they're doing. These cults are about power, trying to be a deen, just like Islam. Exactly. It's the same spirit, the same ideas. Wiccans won the right to use Air Force facility in Colorado, financially supported by the USAF. Exactly, Locust and Honey. There you go. So, they're lying. Exactly. Exactly. Andrew, you get it. So in 2015, they published an article discussing the use of witchcraft among queer and trans youth as a means of empowerment. So it shows how some transgender individuals will use mystical practices to gain a sense of control and power in their lives, and of course, drive them away from Christianity. Deconstructionist. Yes, Your Highness. I will do a different presentation, one of the other ones that I showed you. We will discuss this. Right? So there is no one way to be a witch. It's very freeing. And the popular idea of the witch underwent a transformation. Now they're going to sell you the evil. The popular idea of the witch has undergone a transformation. Gone is the baby-eating, Satan-worshipping hag of medieval Europe, and in its place has emerged the beautiful, feminine, amazing idea of female healers. Don't you want to be one? This is awesome stuff. Do you understand? Here is the soft sell. Mr. Rock, wow. Thank you very much. I'm so grateful. Thank you. The shoe don't fit. Change the definition. Exactly. Manipulation of terms. Correct. I'm going to be doing a few episodes on this. I'll be doing several over the next few months so that I can highlight and hopefully teach you guys what this is, what it does, how it works, so you can listen and learn and not be fooled by it. So you won't buy the nonsense. Second wave feminists seeking a strong female subject latched onto the witch as the embodiment of feminine power. Witchcraft entered the feminist consciousness spiritually through traditions like Wicca. Oh, so it was something the feminists did. So the feminists got into witchcraft and Wicca and this kind of satanic practice. So yeah, it's nothing that's anti-Christian. No, not at all. Not at all. It's neutral. It's science. It's science, for sure. It's science. And so you also have politically groups like WITCH, the Women's International Terrorist Conspiracy from Hell. A political group called WITCH, the Women's International Terrorist Conspiracy from Hell. Yeah. Nothing to see here. Please move along. Non-religious, exactly, Ernesto. Exactly. Astrotech 1045, very welcome. Good to see you. Thank you for being here. Richard Moore, hello. People self-identify as trans, buy and make it easy to segment them and feed them personalized nonsense. Exactly. We'll be talking about that. I've got another presentation on that topic. We'll be touching on it here, and we'll be touching on it in another presentation as well over the next few weeks. Right, J.K. Rowling and transgender gods. J.K. Rowling faces backlash after tweeting support for transphobic researcher. Probably means someone who used science. Who would have guessed that feminism loves witchcraft? Maybe it's witchcraft loves feminism. Maybe it's witches love feminism. Maybe it's evil people like evil things. Villainous, well said, but yeah, I'd say it's evil people like evil things. From Hell, Andrew says, mockery and truth. Yeah, some corners of Twitter want the Harry Potter author cancelled after she stood up for a woman with a history of questioning the legitimacy of trans identities. We just discovered that the American Psychiatric Association says that trans is a mental illness. Trans is a mental disorder. It is formally and officially, according to the DSM-5, a mental disorder. So yes, I think it's legitimate to question it because it states in the definition that it's not real. It's... But you understand, you have to accept it despite the evidence, and they'll punish you if you don't. They'll make it very costly for you if you don't. It's mental and spiritual sickness. So in 2020, J.K. Rowling, who wrote Harry Potter, of course, made a series of controversial tweets about transgender issues. In one tweet, she compared transgender hormone therapy to a magic spell that could change a person's sex. Now that's very astute of her. That's very, very astute. So this shows how powerful the trans media control is, effectively cancelling a female billionaire. They made an example of her. Now, she's very, very wealthy. They couldn't come out and just Hulk smash her. What they did was it's the death of 1,000 cuts. Okay? But understand, they will go after anybody. So, yeah. Right, so transgender high priestess. Oh, transgender high priestess. Oh my, I thought this is not a religion. Good grief. Is this me or... It's science, right? Please tell me it's science and I'm not reading this wrong. That I didn't just read those words. Transgender high priestess. Please tell me I didn't read those words. It's science. I'm dealing with science here, people. So, Maggie Chapman. Okay, in 2023, a video of a transgender high priestess speaking in tongues, reciting an incantation to invoke Thranos, the god of non-binary, went viral. This is Green... Oh, she's in politics. Oh my god, she's a politician. She's a politician. The Scottish Greens. Thranos, the god of non-binary. Science. Thank you, Andrew, for being so astute. Yes, the god of... The scientific god of trans. Yeah. Okay, science people. She did have that potion that changed you to another person, but you had to keep taking it. Rick Bass says, Lloyd, yeah, Tranos is probably a false god. Slavi, welcome. Shout out from Canada. Okay, so guys, is this making sense so far? I mean, okay, moving on. So Maggie Chapman calls for a government to better support trans and non-binary youth. In other words, we want the law. We want this paganism, witchcraft, to be law. This has to be mandated by law so we can punish you. She has once again come out swinging for LGBTQ plus FU rights in a speech calling for Scotland to do more in supporting trans youth. Okay. Maggie Chapman slated for bonkers speech about transgender kids at Holyrood. Holyrood. So she has a speech at a place called Holyrood. Okay. She was compared to a preacher, and she spoke of solidarity with children who are LGBTQ plus FU. Children. You know, it's like, for instance, if you have a vegan cat, if you have an LGBT child, it's like having a vegan cat. We know it's got zip to do with a cat. It's got everything to do with the owner or the parents. So children as young as 8 should be helped to change gender. And of course, at Tavistock Institute in London, I believe, they were referring children as young as 3 and 4 years old, because no child under 16 should legally, and of course, it's sensible that a child at 16 should be able to make up their minds. But let's send those 3-year-olds. Let's send those 3-year-olds. Why? Because if these people can't have their own children, they're going to have to convert and shag yours. Let's be honest. Okay? Nothing religious, just chill. Exactly, Ernesto. Thank you. So yeah. Okay, let's move on. Masks. Yeah, let's gender out. Green MSP Maggie Chapman suggests 8-year-old children could legally change sex. And of course, let's have a look at what Maggie has to say here.
Inotsiza no moyo wangu, wose kuti dichave mutigiri, anovimbika uye akatendeka, wamambukazi Elizabeth, na nevanji wavo, na vose vachatongo.
Your Highness says 100% of vegan pets have vegan owners. That is a genius statement. 100% of vegan pets have vegan owners. Should I play that again? Let me play this again. This is her speaking in tongues, giving a spell, because it's got nothing to do with religion. It's all just science, people.
No moyo wangu, wose kuti.
Oops, sorry.
Dichave mutigiri, anovimbika uye akatendeka, wamambukazi Elizabeth, na nevanji wavo, na vose vachatongo.
Yeah, Supinana Shabbat pressure, right? Supinana Shabbat pressure, right? So yeah, I heard pizza, bro. I'm on board. Yeah, so guys, this is science. This is science. It's not religious at all. Don't. Nothing to do with Satanism, witchcraft. Don't get that. I don't know where you're getting those ideas, you bigots. Let's move on. Purity obsession. Yeah, it has nothing to do with reality either. Sounds like a character in Star Wars. It's a charismatic Protestant. Mr. Rock? Yes, and yes. And we're going to be talking in my next presentation about how woke and the Reformation kind of have a few unfortunate overlaps. But nothing to see here. Move along. Okay, so if they say kids can consent to changing sex, then what can they say after that? Yeah, then kids can consent to bending over for you and hope you use Vaseline, right? You know, if you get my drift, understand where this is going? It's a very slippery slope. Play her speech backwards, Dan says. It might make sense. It sounds like those Pentecostal charismatic churches, yeah. But you understand, they are using religious themes. They are co-opting and corrupting religion, right? And unfortunately, Martin Luther, twat that he was, opened the door to this. And I think you know my position on Martin Luther. I think he's a vile, disgusting human being. Right. So, and as in the next story, the next presentation I do, Martin Luther's he's gonna get a beat down because he deserves it. So no, it's 10 after 8 p.m. here. So back to paganism. Exactly. Back to paganism, back to Rome. Pagan Rome. Exactly. Okay, but of course we're going to get to that. I'm going to be talking about that. That's exactly the plan. It's exactly the point. That's where it comes from. So totalist groups like cults and totalitarian regimes enforce strict standards of behavior and belief. They claim that any deviation from these standards will lead to the group's downfall and the individual's non-existence. Oh, I have a question. Should I just go through the slides and ignore the chat, or should I have the conversation, respond to the comments, respond to the chat as I go through this? Because it does take more time, of course, but I mean, I like having the engagement and the conversation with you guys, answering the questions and working with the comments. Robert Lazarov, welcome. Thank you for joining. And Chris Knox, welcome. Yeah, so I mean, hope you guys don't mind having the back and forth. I like to have a conversation rather than me just reading off the screen, right? Would be kind of dull that way. They're trying to get MAPS accepted, so they're trying already. Yeah, MAPS means a minor attracted pedophile. Lilo Mine says, I like the Insta responses. I enjoy the engagement. Thank you, guys. It'd be good if you had a moderator to help you moderate and vet the questions. Yeah, but I do have mods, Teresa. I do have several mods running right now. It's quite a linear timeline. Pagans to Gnostics to Protestants to Enlightenment. Look, Sunday, I'm going to be doing a talk with Mal from Sneakers Corner, right? Formerly Sneakers Corner, rather. Now Islamic Origins. We're going to be doing a talk on Pius X. We're going to talk about the Catholic Church and the Pius X and how he was called the Hammer of Heretics and how he described the heresy of modernism, which is a synthesis of all these heresies. And of course, we have to go through all of the individual heresies, or several of the individual heresies that he discusses. But he actually starts with one document discussing Gnosticism, right? What is odd is I haven't seen any Catholics, literally a single one, mention that in context of this. So Gnosticism is a real problem that he identifies, right? So yeah, I spoke with Mal a couple of days ago. So we'll be doing this on Sunday about 7 or 7:30 p.m. my time, the same time I did this one on Sunday, right? I'll be doing this, and then I'll do part 2 of this next week, and then I've got some more coming. And also I'm going to be going through the Catholic Church, dealing with heresies. I'll be doing 8 different heresies. So the Catholic Church dealing with heresies throughout the ages. So I've got 8 of those planned for this year, right? Yeah, he's also Irish, so yeah, exactly. So, okay. The engagement is what makes it lively and engaging. Thanks, guys. Appreciate that. All right. So again, if you like this, hit the like, subscribe, and so on. Oh, by the way, I've also been adding timestamps, the chapter timestamps to all my videos. I think I've done 40 or 50 videos now. I've got timestamps done going back. So that should make it easier to watch the videos and to jump to sections as you want. Okay. So these groups, they enforce strict standards of behavior and belief. Okay. So claiming that any deviation would lead to the downfall of the group and the individual's non-existence. So if you didn't defend the group, you will die. You will be genocided, right? So the emphasis on purity, so you can see there's this whole idea of the dispensation of existence is mixed with purity obsession. So sometimes these different categories overlap, right? So this emphasis on purity and the elimination of impurities, that's you, both physically and spiritually, Christianity, serves to maintain the group's control and influence over its members by creating a sense of fear and dependence. Okay. Give me 1 sec. Sorry about that. Yeah, I've had some disconnections and I should be back now. Yeah, it's buffering. Yeah, it should be back now. For some reason, I'm having those connection issues. I will... Okay, right. So let's not talk about Sweden now, conociendo. Okay, so guys, going on. We should be reconnected. Everything is apparently excellent now. So you've got strict control of information and communication. This is media control. You'll see this in repressive regimes that censor information and free speech, like countries like America, except now not Twitter these days. Yeah, Kono, sorry about that. Use of loaded language and cliches to stop complex thought. Okay, control of language. So what I mentioned with Sheikh Bayadi earlier, 2 sides of the same wing, or whatever, the 2 wings of the same bird. Okay, so use of loaded language and cliches to stop complex thought. They're known as thought-terminating cliches. Actually, that's the term that I wanted. You've got to be careful not to be trapped by thought terminating cliches. Don't be trapped by what's called thought terminating cliches. Okay? Now, you've got the terms like Big Brother, Thought Police, and Doublethink. Those are common terms that you know, but we'll discuss a few others as we go. Now, they require confessions and self-criticisms, which is called a cult confession. This was practiced in Maoist China, called struggle sessions. And Scientology, you have things called auditing. Now, for instance, what will happen is, of course, when you do the audit, when you do the struggle session, this also gives them ammunition they can use against you, because you want to show group loyalty by confessing your sins, and these sins can be used against you, right? So they have leverage over you, right? Now, of course, ideological purity. So left-leaning groups on college campuses began to demand that speakers adhere to a very strict set of ideological principles. Those who didn't were disinvited, or they faced protests. I mean, you even had politicians pulling fire alarms to cancel speakers on campus. This is the purity culture that you saw with Mao's China, and that's cancel culture, exactly. It is totalitarian, it is woke, it is leftist, it is democratic. So, in the recent past, there have been several instances of individuals being cancelled for expressing views that were deemed impure or problematic. We know of Twitter and Facebook censorship and suppression. We saw that when Elon Musk bought Twitter, all of that came out. And we know it's happening at Facebook and YouTube too. Right? It's happening everywhere. Universities disinvite or violently interrupt speakers. Right? This cancel culture is a manifestation of purity obsession. It tries to remove any impurities from the discourse. You see it now with Muslims as well in the Sharia. It's the same thing. It's no different. It's just the woke Sharia. Same thing. Identity politics. You've got the left's obsession with purity is seen in its focus on identity politics. Left-leaning groups begin to insist that only individuals who shared specific identity characteristics could speak on certain issues. Okay? So, if you weren't a woman, you couldn't speak about women's issues because you don't have a cervix and a uterus, right? If you're not black, you can't speak about black issues. But if you're white, you shouldn't speak. You should just shut up because whiteness is bad. Understand? So it's really just words to mask totalitarianism. All right. So yeah, Elon Musk sacked something like 90% of Twitter, and it's working better than ever. I mean, he sacked like 90% of the staff. Twitter just hit an all-time high on Tuesday, right? So, sorry, women can't speak on men's issues. Yeah, yeah, that too. So yeah, I have a cold and I'm getting over it. I had a severe cold. I don't know if you can hear it in my throat. Everyone should just learn that everyone on this planet is sinful and needs a redeemer. Exactly, but they're trying to take you away from that, Hein. So this type of purity excludes other perspectives and creates social division. It leads to aggressive, balkanized us versus them social dynamics. You've got quarreling factions based on immutable characteristics. Once you accept them, remember they drive the wedge, they put in the thin end of the spear, and after that, once you give them an inch, they're going to take 5 miles, right? Once you say, well, okay, you know what, we're going to allow these black people to get these jobs without merit, we're just going to give it to them because of black, and then suddenly white people shouldn't get jobs at all. And that's what happens. You guys know what's happening. Racism against straight white men is tolerated. It is constant. It is everywhere. It is legal for all intents and purposes, despite the fact that on paper it's illegal. It's socially acceptable. You know this. And you have to learn to say no. So this is a divisive Marxist strategy. Make no mistake, this is communist, right? It's pitting the thesis versus the antithesis, insider versus outsider. It's designed to undermine the unifying principles on which your culture is built. It is designed to undermine and destroy. Remember, Marx wanted to tear down society and build from the ashes. So, sacred science. Now let's look at sacred science. So we're going to have a look at Gnosis and Lysenkoism. I'll go like another 10 minutes or so. I'm not going to define Lysenkoism. I mean, I could, but I'm not going to. I'd like you guys to maybe look up Lysenkoism yourself. I'm going to give a very basic definition here. Yeah, there's better talks by Conceptual James, right? That discusses this really well. So claims of holding a monopoly on truth or uniquely representing the people, right? For instance, you get like Ibrahim X. Kendi, who represents black voices, No, they don't. The Democrat Party that speaks on behalf of black people. No, they don't. But they make the claim, and if you don't conform, well, they will Uncle Tom you, right? You know, so yeah. Lysenkoism is very bad. Yeah. So these are hallmarks of dangerous ideological fundamentalism, when they claim to have a monopoly on truth or uniquely represent the people. So in like Stalin's Soviet Union, you had Trofim Lysenko claim that he's pseudoscientific, and it was incredibly pseudoscientific. Theories of agriculture represented sacred science that deserved unquestioning acceptance. This fake science killed millions. It led to maybe as many as 12 million deaths in the Ukraine, which is why the Ukrainians weren't so happy to see Russia come running over their border. Cheeky Shaky, welcome. Rick Bass, welcome. So the political left and transgender extremists make similar claims that they alone represent absolute moral truth, and they speak for all marginalized groups. Now here's an odd thing. Okay, so in America, you've got blacks are a marginalized group because they aren't a 98.3% majority. However, if you look at white people worldwide, white people are a very small minority worldwide, right? Do you think white people are given the same kind of respect and same kind of privilege in Uganda? Do you think you get the same in China? Heck no. Okay, so why are you giving way to people who hate you? I've said this to others before, but let me be very blunt. As a black guy from Africa, on the average, black people are taught, if you're white, they're taught to hate you. You need to understand the conversations that black people have when you're not in the room. So I've had conversations, you know, we're all at work, we're all whatever, hanging out socially. If the white guys leave, the black guys start talking, you're not going to like the conversation that comes out once you step out the door. Okay? When I'm in taxis with black people and there's no white people around, you're not going to like what the taxi driver has to say. Because they'll say things to me they would not say to you because my skin is not white. You are going to be shocked. You're not going to be happy. Don't tolerate this. Don't let them in the door. Very simple. So, these guys don't allow dissent, and they want to censor or cancel anyone who questions orthodoxy. All right, so cancel culture has seen people lose their jobs, sued to pieces, okay, for having views that go against the sacred science. Transgenderism is sacred science. We know for a fact it's defined as a mental illness. We know it's illogical. We know it's irrational. I'll cover that in the future, but it's sacred science. Doesn't matter what the facts are. So this, of course, destroys free speech, and there's no open debate. So the trans community has also made claims to uniquely represent truth. James, welcome. Not of Works, welcome. So, of course, in terms of gender identity, they created a whole sort of science of gender identity, which redefines everything and ignores logic and ignores biology, right? And of course, they silence anyone with the law who will dissent, and this is more Lysenkoism, right? A free society depends on open debate and the free exchange of ideas. Now, next, us versus them, right? This us versus them mentality. So you go from mentality to vocabulary. For instance, they'll say, our existence is at stake. Well, they create a very strong in-group versus out-group division. Us or them. You with us or you with them, right? It's very, very simple. They put you on the outside. Feminism, for instance. Let's look at some examples that tend to lie in certain categories. Feminism. The word patriarchy. It's used to describe male-dominated power structures that oppress women. Are you male? Then you oppress women. Are you white? Then you oppress blacks. In fact, you oppress everybody. Were you born white? Well, you were raised at birth. Why? Because you're going to oppress people. It's inherent in your whiteness. Can you do anything about it? Well, there's no forgiveness in this cult. Do you understand there is no forgiveness in this cult? You've been targeted. You are now subject to radical subjugation. You need to stand up to this. The personal is political. Deceitful propaganda slogan, right? Teaching that personal desires are society's concern. You have to politicize everything. Everything is racist. Everything is sexist. And you have to call it all out. You guys might remember that statement, right? Anita Sarkeesian. The utopian fantasies must be met with political action. Understand, these ideas have consequences. Ideas, and also philosophy has consequences. The next talk I'll do, once I finish this one, is that philosophy has consequences. I'm going to be looking at that in some detail, in quite a bit of detail, technical detail. So, CMB, well, thank you very much for the support. I really appreciate it. Okay. Now, of course, this claim that the personal is political is used to justify government overreach into private lives and impose a collectivist agenda. So you understand, these phrases mean something. It motivates them to action. So they will take action. And now they demand that the government harms you financially, harms you reputationally, harms you legally, takes away your job, destroys your reputation, your family, right? Puts you in jail. So that, understand, this is where this ends up. This is a very slippery slope, and it just becomes frantic and irrational. Trans advocates will say things like cisgender. This describes individuals whose gender identity aligns with biological science. Well, so now you've got to vilify science. Anyone who will reach to science for rationality as an anchor in a crazy world, well, you're cisgender. You are bad. Understand? These terms eventually, they kind of keep lurching over to the side, and eventually they go from neutral, scientific, to evil. Dead naming 100% of people, yeah. This is the act of referring to a trans person by their birth name, deemed disrespectful and harmful, and can lead to hate crime charges and legal convictions. And they have, okay? And they actually have. Right? So bear this in mind. Oh, wait, Atex, thank you very much. Much appreciated. Right? Nazi propaganda. Let's have a look. The term Aryan, right? This is the same as what the Nazis did. A term used to describe a supposed master race of people with specific physical and cultural characteristics, right? This is no different to the kind of propaganda being used within the trans community, the feminist community, which has become more and more extreme and is now morphed into this whole trans community. Untermensch, a term used to describe people deemed to be inferior or subhuman, cis white males. That's you now. Understand? Same idea, different word, same poop, different day, right? So this is used to justify discrimination and violence. And you know that's exactly where it goes. Joel Thomas, welcome. Just got back from the holidays and greeted with a stream. Yeah, glad. Yeah, hope you had a good holiday. Hope you all had a good holiday, had a wonderful Christmas. Hope you all had a safe, blessed family Christmas, and of course, great New Year. Sheikh says, I can tell you what will happen, as it happened many times in the past. When things become tough, as will happen, people will close in on themselves. They will not be generous to others. Yeah, look, we'll see. I'll be doing a talk on propaganda and ideological warfare. I'll be doing more talks on that this year. I have a bunch of notes already. I just need to make time to talk about them. Let's look at Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter. Systemic racism, a term used to describe the institutional and structural forms of racism that persist in society. Can you fix it? Of course you can't. No, you can't. Of course not. There's nothing optimistic. These are entirely pessimistic ideologies, because if you're white and society's white, then society's racist and you're racist, and therefore you can't fix it until you get rid of white people. Do you understand the problem? You need to honestly understand the problem. Half my family's white. I have no desire to terminate my white family or to see them terminated. I will fight to protect them, right? I might not even like some of my family, but I will protect them. And I happen to like Western society. I will fight to protect it. You need to understand, and I'm going to say this as a black person from Africa, but these people hate you, right? You need to understand, you need to defend yourselves. So you need to make sure that people follow the law, that you impose your will, your culture, your values. Because if you don't, they will impose theirs, and none of theirs are good. Okay, so, okay, white privilege, right? A term used to describe the advantages that white people have in society due to immutable characteristics. So, a white guy who works as a garbage collector, a white guy who works as a janitor, is privileged. And Oprah Winfrey, she's suffering from systemic racism, because she's black and she doesn't get respect. But that white janitor who can't feed his family and can't give them the life he wants to give them, well, his privilege is destroying society. Do you understand? This stuff is irrational. It makes no sense. Okay, last page, and I'll think we'll call it a night. Yeah, this is the system. Yeah, which means you can't be racist towards white people. Exactly. It's just redefining racism. So it's not just stupidity, it's malice. Understand? It's gone past stupidity, it's now malice. So there's more division rising. Exactly. Divide. Yes, James. Poor fellow soldier of Christ. And it is divide and conquer. Now, that's a really good point that he makes. Right? He makes a very good point. Divide and conquer. Yes, I'd agree with that. Right? That's exactly what it is. There's more division, divide and conquer. So you need to find the flag that you can rally around. The problem is Christianity has been made out to be bad. Okay? Patriotism is made out to be bad. Why do you think you can't find Americans to fight in the army, right? To join the army. So any flag that you would rally around has been torn down, has been made humiliating to show allegiance to, whereas their flag has risen and yours has been taken down. Do you understand? You are going to have to push back regardless. Right, so environmentalism, eco-terrorism. Do you use paper straws that are toxic and bad for you and give you bad chemicals? Because, I mean, read some of the new reports on paper straws. You're an eco-terrorist. Do you not want to eat the bugs? You're an eco-terrorist. Do you want to have steak? Delicious steak? You're an eco-terrorist. Okay? So this describes acts of violence or sabotage committed in the name of environmental protection, right? Eco-terrorism, right? And people will do this, and it's righteous terrorism, though. It's righteous terrorism, you see? You can destroy artworks in famous museums because you're saving the planet, right? It's righteous. Greenwashing. The term used to describe the practice of making misleading or false claims about the environmental benefits of a product or service, right? We're seeing the collapse of the energy industry because of greenwashing of green energy, which is anything but green, right? Making us eat bugs because the super rich keep the jets and the steaks. Exactly. Let's look at religious fundamentalism. Blasphemy. Well, do understand the woke has its own blasphemy, right? You don't believe in transgenderism? Well, that's blasphemy, right? And remember, they will punish you. They've got blasphemy laws that are real, will cause you harm, right? So these guys have gone back. You think the Spanish Inquisition was bad? Well, these guys are worse. So a term used to describe speech or actions that are considered disrespectful or offensive to the woke religion, to the green religion, to nothing to do with Islam either. Exactly. Infidel. To describe a person who does not adhere to a particular religion or belief system. Well, if you're not an infidel, you're an Islamophobe, you're a something phobe, you're a transphobe. So, do you understand? It's nothing strange. It's religious. Echo chamber. Describes a situation in which people only encounter information and opinions that reinforce their existing beliefs, right? So they don't listen to outside beliefs. They don't allow outside ideas to be discussed. They cannot allow these ideas in to break the spell. That's something I've spoken about before, and let me finish this and I'll come back to echo chamber. I'll end on that note. I think it's worth mentioning to you. Fake news is a term used to describe false and misleading information that is presented as news with the intent to deceive or manipulate, right? We know these terms. And of course, please practice tolerance and acceptance, you bigot. You want facts? Facts aren't. Where's your compassion? Where's your compassion for the poor woman with a penis? That wants to go into your 4-year-old child's changing room, you bigot, you. Where's your compassion that you want science, you aren't accepting, you aren't being tolerant, Do you understand? This is not positive. This is going to destroy society. Now, on the concept of echo chamber, there is tolerance for drag queen story hour. Exactly. So, yeah. So guys, if you like this, please do like, share, subscribe, all of the above, and thank you for the support. The slides are available in the pinned comment. Okay, so there's the thing called the Ash conformity experiment. Now, a lot of psychological experiments have been proven to be false data, false experiments, etc. Right? Just bad. But the Ash conformity experiment has been repeated reliably. Right? So what he did was he would take larger groups or smaller groups. Right? Yes, Janice, where's the compassion for the child? Right? So he would take larger groups and smaller groups. So then he would bring in someone. So he's got a group of trained actors or trained students. They've all been prepared in advance. Then he takes an innocent person in, and he'll draw a line on the board, a long one, and he'll draw a short one, and he'll say which one is longer, and everyone will point to the short one and say that one. And then the person, of course, that's sitting there is confused, and they're like, no, and they'll argue, and eventually you'll find that because of peer pressure, the manipulation, the desire to get along and not to deal with the awkwardness, right? They will eventually conform and go against the truth, go against the evidence of their eyes, and they'll say, the short one's the long line's the short one. He'll draw a horse, okay? And draw a chicken and say, which one's the chicken? And they'll say the horse. Understand? And people would eventually, they found that consistently, reliably, people would deny reality and go along. And this works extremely well. The Ash conformity experiments, right? Peer pressure. This is the power of peer pressure. It works really well. Now, and this is one of the fundamental principles that is utilized by these propagandists to create this conformity, by totalitarians, the woke, and so on that we're talking about. However, the converse of that is, the opposite of that is that if one person is willing to stand up to go against that inhibition, right, and they will say, that's a bunch of nonsense, crap, that's the horse, that's the chicken, yeah, don't trust your lying eyes, exactly, they're creating doubt, right, conformity. But if one person is willing to stand up and speak the truth, right, if one person is willing to do so, what they found is that that person will destroy their ability to indoctrinate by up to 80% within the group. So in other words, if you had 100 people, okay, this would mean that they were only 1/5 effective. Up to 80+ % of those people would either snap out of the spell, because they would break the spell, or they would not be able to indoctrinate them because suddenly the spell is exposed for the irrational nonsense that it is. So 1 person in 5. So you, as one person alone, you think, hold on, I'm just one guy, what can I do? Within your small community of 5, 10, 20 people, work, your sports club, whatever it is, right? 1 person on campus, that's why they have to censor you so hard. But 1 person who's got a following, 1 person with, 10,000 people read 1 tweet, read 1 message, and it resonates with them because this is what they were thinking and suppressing, suddenly snaps the spell. They break out of it. They no longer believe it. Those doubts that they've been dealing with suddenly come to the forefront. It snaps the spell, and also it prevents them from falling back under the spell, or it prevents people from being indoctrinated by the spell. Do you understand? It is incredibly powerful. Your voice is incredibly powerful. I've said before, you need to be a grain of sand. Sure, you can't be a tidal wave. Just use honesty. Use the truth. Now, there might be a price for it. Let's understand. There's a price for this. It takes a lot of courage. You're going to need to be courageous. But be a grain of sand. You speak up, someone else is going to speak up. You be that first grain of sand. Be the grain of sand in their gears, right? Be the grain of sand. Enough grains of sand, and you will start to grind their gears, and eventually you will grind their gears to a halt. 1 grain of sand can grind the gears. A lot of grains of sand will grind those gears to a halt, right? I'll end here for now. Remember, Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. Hold on, the truth. I am the truth. So he's the Logos. In the beginning was the Word. In the beginning was the Logos. And the Logos was God, and the Logos was with God. The Logos is the truth by definition. It is also the spoken word. So understand, I covered in theological, I discussed that at length. Speak the truth, right? Simple. The truth is very powerful. And don't be naive. Be as wise as owls and as gentle as doves, or whatever the statement is. And yeah, guys, if anyone mistakes me for Beyonce, I will let you guys know. This new gender diverse world is very interesting. Hopefully I can make some money off being Beyonce. Maybe I can have someone book me to sing a few songs for $1 million. You never know. You never know. What do you think? Charge them like $50 a photo? Hey, Beyonce. So anyway, guys, that's it from me. I hope this has been interesting. We're on page 18. I've got 40 of these, so I'll try and do 2 or 3 episodes. Ernesto doesn't believe me that I look like Beyonce today to people. It's like, what? Do you think I want to be an ugly woman, Ernesto? Okay, guys, thank you very much. It's been really wonderful having this conversation with you. I hope you've learned something. Right, remember, shine a light in the darkness and be a grain of sand. Grind those gears, okay? Don't give in to falsehood. Speak the truth. So thank you, guys. Have a wonderful night. God bless. Take care. Good night.